Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Kirsty if you're new here, and this conversation is about leptin, which is one of the hormones that play a role in our appetite regulation. So, the reason why I wanted to bring this to light is one, because I think about food and I love food, but there is periods of my life where if I'm carrying more body fat, I have this inkling to eat more. And when I started to really think about it and reflect upon it, I was sort of thinking why is this happening? I have enough fat stores in my body to last me several weeks if I had to go without. Why do I feel like I need to eat more? There is some sort of breakdown that's happening within my body, within my brain, what's happening. So I started to explore a little bit, and something that I wanted to educate you guys on from what I understand. And I also wanted to open up the conversation for those who know more than me, definitely, because I want to be able to have these conversations with other people, but I have no one to talk to. So I can't just bounce ideas off. I only know what I know, but I still explore. But something that I really wanted to be able to chat about is this, and chatting about leptin, because from when I first learned about appetite regulation hormones, we've ghrelin and leptin, which are massive key players in terms of our appetite suppression, right? And appetite regulation, and also hunger levels, right? So just essentially saying and telling us when we're super hungry to eat, when we're not, when we're full to not eat, all that sort of stuff. So ghrelin is like the hunger hormone. Ghrelin is like, oh my gosh, we need food, hunger, 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 right? And with leptin, leptin is essentially the appetite suppressant hormone. Now, leptin is stored in our fat. So in our fat cells, we store the hormone leptin. And essentially what happens is if our body fat levels are too low, the body signals that, hey, we need to increase ghrelin to increase our appetite to go after and get more food so we can store more fat. When we're at a steady state of fat balance, we're in a healthy range. Theoretically, we can have healthy leptin levels and also ghrelin levels that fluctuate depending on the needs, and obviously ensuring that we're eating enough to support our energy demands each day. And then when we have excess fat, we have higher leptin levels. Now, you would think in theory about understanding leptin levels now, that if leptin's an appetite suppressant or regulation hormone, the higher leptin levels that we have, the less inkling we have to eat, right? But the higher fat that we have within our cells, the higher levels of leptin, however, there is a disconnect that happens between that and the brain that actually bypasses the leptin signal to say, hey, we've got enough stores of energy on our body, and can actually increase our ghrelin hormone, so to the increasing desire to eat more, and actually bypass the fact that we have enough fat stores on our body. I find that extremely fascinating. It's like the body is always working towards a state of balance, right? I literally base pretty much everything of what I do to understand the art of balance within ourselves. And it's a delicate balance, right? Our body is working every single second of every single day to keep a steady state of balance, even right now as I'm talking. And, it just goes to show that when you don't have enough, the body goes, we need to get more. If we have too much, the body can also dysfunction as well. Now, the concerning thing of what brought this to light is one, I learned about a new term called leptin resistance. So there's a thing out there called insulin resistance, where essentially the body is unable to utilize glucose as efficiently as it would if insulin levels were pretty stable, right? So there's also something called leptin resistance. And I'm just going to refer to my notes for this because I wrote down a few things from some of the studies that I read. But leptin resistance essentially means too much leptin that in the body is stored within the fat, and the body is unable to process, and the signals cannot go through the normal function. So normally leptin would signal to the brain, hey, we've had enough, we're all good, we've got enough energy in our body from food stored in our body, so we're good. We don't need to eat anymore. However, leptin resistance bypasses that, as what I mentioned a little bit earlier. So Now, the complications with leptin resistance is that not only does it increase our hunger levels significantly, but it also lowers our basal metabolic rate. So we have a few things when it comes to our energy, and basal metabolic rate is essentially the amount of energy our body burns just by being alive. So if I didn't get out of bed for the day, I decided to just lay in bed and watch Netflix, I still burn energy from all the bodily functions that are happening in the background, breathing, blinking, like just keeping me alive. However, from what we've seen in the studies and what I've read is that it actually lowers our basal metabolic rate. So not only is it lowering the amount of energy we expend each day, but it's increasing the desire to eat even more. Now, the challenges with this is that that's why we have an obesity epidemic. And the concern with that is that, it's going to be so hard to help people regulate their appetites. And I was actually doing some research into it because I always get curious, right? I'm like, because for me, I even know with myself, I'm a few kilos overweight than where I need to be right now. But like I mentioned a little bit earlier, the higher body fat levels that I do have, the more I want to eat. And that's what sparked this conversation for me, because I was like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? As we always do when we're talking about these sort of things. But it really made me start to think what's going on. And I know there are so many people out there that experience this, but the phenomenon of where even when you've got excess body fat that you want to eat more, that's an interesting correlation. That goes beyond hyperpalatable foods. That goes beyond that. It goes beyond emotional drive for eating or using it as, something in those sort of terms to help with creating balance within the body beyond, even just energy balance, right? That's what sparked my curiosity. And how to combat it is currently unknown. So I'm actually on a little bit of a quest right now. This is one of the things that I do love about myself, is that I'm able to sort of hone in on something and get curious, but I'm only limited to the resources out there in terms of scientific studies and stuff. So if there's anyone out there that works in this realm of things, I would love to hear from you, or if you know someone, because the interesting thing is sometimes it's not people's fault, people just say, just stop eating. But, the discomfort of not eating, and when your hunger levels are so high, we already know there's a dysregulation happening in the body, right? The body is significantly out of balance when it gets to a point where it's too much. But the thing is a really big thing of what we need to do is ensure that we don't shock the body too much. And that's a big belief that I have, is when you are changing baselines with something, you have to go gradually, build a new baseline, take time to rest and recover. And with that, it's how can you approach it in a way, is it very, very gradual reduction, some days only, obviously there's weight loss surgeries and also drugs out there at the moment, but they don't play in that same realm. However, they can have effects that could benefit this. For example, your weight loss drugs that you have at the moment, they work not specifically with leptin levels, but they can positively impact this and also fat loss. But yeah, I find it interesting. And the only thing that I could actually find so far is that what they found in doing studies with mice that were leptin resistant, so, their body's not processing their signals properly, they want to eat more, their energy is lower, is that two essential amino acids, leucine and methionine, are known activators of a signaling molecule mTOR, and these are actually dysregulated. So when we think about that, we've actually got essential amino acids we need from our diet. So we need 9 from our diet because 9 cannot be synthesized within the body. The others can. So these two are essential amino acids. And if we think about this, I have to find the name of the drug that was being used. I actually wonder if I've still got it on my phone that I was looking at. Let me just look this up, because it's a very fascinating, where is it? I wonder if I still had, oh, this might be it. Hold on. Have I got it in my screenshots? Oh, rapamycin. Rapamycin. I don't know if I'm saying that properly, but essentially mTOR is short for mammalian target of rapamycin. And you can take it as a external thing that can help with, like, I suppose certain signals or things like that, like the signaling molecule. And with that, like, there's a dysregulation. Does that mean, like, because what I couldn't find in the studies, which I'm going to try and contact the people who have actually done the study of this one, is like, when they say dysregulation, do they mean uptake, absorption? Do they mean too high of, these two essential amino acids? What does this mean? What does this dysregulation mean? Because dysregulation can mean so many different things. It could mean, like, maybe they're not working in whatever coding sequence that it needs within the body, right? Because when we think about proteins within the body, our body proteins, they make up like our DNA, all that sort of stuff. We actually need that, some of them coming in from our diet. So dietary proteins come in, they go through a chemical process, convert into bodily proteins, and different sequences are required for different proteins. And then I'm like, does dysregulation mean that they're not working together when they should be? Like, what does dysregulation mean? So if anyone has further answers about this, please, 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 please get in contact with me below, because this is such a fascinating subject, in the sense that we don't actually know how to combat this currently. Weight loss drugs and weight loss surgeries can positively impact in some ways, but that's because they're targeting something else, but it has a byproduct of positively impacting leptin resistance for a while, right? Because it all depends on your fat levels that you have on your body. But how can we do things in a way that's least invasive, that's sustainable, and that anyone can access? Now, that is the question I want to understand. Is it like supplementing with, like, adding in extra amino acids? Is it, removing, like, is it, does fiber have a certain type of role? Like, I don't know, and I want to know. So if you guys like these conversations too, please let me know, because I'm just sort of sharing at the moment how my brain works. And I like to think and try and piece things together, and that's how I learn best. But I don't have all the answers. So with that, I'm always trying to continuously learn and understand, because I know food is such a massive role in people's life. And there's nothing worse than when you feel like food is uncontrollable. And like the discomfort of extreme hunger, and even knowing that it's like there's this disconnect between, like, okay, you don't actually need food technically, because, maybe like you need how do I say this? That sounds so bad. You could survive if you had to with the amount of fat stores you got on your body, but at the same time, the hunger is so ravenous that you can't even function throughout your day-to-day. And I mean, we can talk black and blue about our current modern day lifestyles. We are definitely overworked, undernourished in terms of, like, micronutrients and stuff coming in, and, environmental pollutants and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like, what can we do? What can we do together to be able to create something that can combat this? Because it's hard. It's hard to feel not in control of something that should be able to have some control over, especially in this abundant day society where we don't have to have that stress of trying to hunt our food or go without or things like that. Like, what can we do? So yeah, but anyways, I hope you guys have a great day, and can't wait to hear from you.